Welcome to Inside the Criminal World. Today, I invite you to step into a realm where the shadows speak, and every secret carries the weight of regret, a realm where the boundary between sinner and savior blurs into an intricate tapestry of human frailty and redemption. This is not a story of clear-cut villains or heroes, but rather of a man who once thrived in darkness, seducing loneliness with whispered promises, only to be haunted by the echoes of his past. His journey is a confession, a raw and unfiltered look into the criminal underworld, painted with the brush strokes of remorse, desire, and the relentless search for salvation. I still remember the night when it all began, the chill of a rain-soaked evening that wrapped the city in a damp embrace. The neon lights flickered in a disjointed harmony, casting fractured reflections on rain-dappled streets. In that surreal urban landscape, every puddle told a story and every shadow concealed a secret. It was in these moments, amidst the blurred lines of light and darkness, that I first recognized the seductive call of the night, a call that promised refuge from the loneliness that gnawed at my soul. My footsteps, light yet determined, carried me into a world where the whispers of the past mingled with the hum of modernity, creating a symphony of lost hopes and unspoken truths. I was a man who understood the power of words, the delicate art of persuasion. I learned early that the language of loneliness was universal, a dialect spoken fluently by those abandoned by fate and time. I sought out these vulnerable souls, offering the allure of companionship and the illusion of redemption. My charm was a carefully honed weapon, one that could disarm even the most wary heart. Yet, behind every word I uttered, every promise I made, lay the cold calculation of a predator who knew that in the world of the forsaken, trust was as fragile as glass. The city itself was my accomplice, a sprawling labyrinth of forgotten alleys, decaying facades, and clandestine corners where secrets festered. It was here that I honed my craft, weaving my web of deceit amid the clamor of everyday life. I remember a particular evening when the rain had turned into a relentless downpour, blurring the boundaries of reality and fantasy. Seeking shelter, I found solace in a modest cafe, its interior aglow with the soft amber of aged lights and the murmurs of solitary souls. There, in a quiet corner by a foggy window, I encountered her, Elise. Her eyes, pools of muted sorrow and hopeful mystery, captivated me instantly. In that fleeting moment, the roles we played shifted ever so slightly from predator and prey to two lost souls momentarily united by the promise of escape. Over time, the fragile connection we forged became a mirror reflecting the duality of my existence. Elisa's gentle spirit, her unspoken yearning for a life beyond loneliness, stirred a dormant part of me, a part that questioned the very nature of my actions. Each conversation with her was a journey into the depths of shared regret and tentative hope. In the soft cadence of her voice, I heard the echoes of a life that might have been, had I chosen a different path. But the weight of my past was an unyielding chain, and every act of seduction, every stolen moment of tenderness, only deepened the chasm between who I was and who I wished to be. As I wandered through the city, the urban landscape transformed before my eyes. Abandoned warehouses and crumbling mansions, once symbols of neglect, took on a strange beauty. Each decayed brick and withering vine spoke of a bygone era and the inevitability of change. One such mansion, with its imposing yet forlorn facade, became the silent repository of my darkest memories. Its corridors, filled with the whisper of lost time, bore witness to my confessions written in a battered diary, confessions that detailed every encounter, every lie, every heartbreak I had sown. In those haunted halls, I found myself confronted by the ghosts of those I had wronged, silent specters whose eyes accused me of 1,000 unspoken crimes. The journey through these memories was both a torment and a revelation. Each step through the decaying mansion was a step into the recesses of my soul, a place where beauty and horror coexisted in a delicate balance. I read through faded letters and crumpled photographs, relics of lives once vibrant, now reduced to whispers of regret. The delicate script of forgotten promises echoed in my mind, stirring feelings of both remorse and a yearning for redemption. I began to wonder if the man I had become was merely a reflection of the darkness that the world had cast upon me, or if there remained a spark of possibility of transformation amid the ruins. In this perpetual twilight of memory and desire, I sought to reconcile the dualities that defined me. I grappled with the irony that my carefully cultivated persona, a man of charm and calculated seduction, was, in fact, a mirror of the very loneliness I had once promised to heal. I understood that every stolen moment of intimacy, every whispered word of false hope, came with a price. The faces of those I had deceived haunted me relentlessly, a constant reminder that the life I led was stained with irrevocable loss. Yet, amidst this relentless tide of guilt, there flickered a defiant glimmer of hope, a belief that even the most fractured soul might find solace in the embrace of truth. This video, Inside the Criminal World, is not merely an exploration of criminal acts or the dark allure of deception. It is an invitation to delve into the intricate labyrinth of human emotion, the delicate interplay of regret, longing, and the desperate desire for redemption. It is a narrative that challenges you to see beyond the surface of crime and punishment, to peer into the heart of a man who, despite his transgressions, dared to seek light in a seemingly unending darkness. Imagine standing in the heart of a city where every street corner is steeped in history, every shadow a silent witness to the passage of time. Picture the interplay of rain and neon, the soft glow of street lamps that illuminate hidden alleys and forgotten memories. Envision a world where each step is a dance with destiny, where the past and present merge into a single, fluid moment of raw, unfiltered emotion. This is the world I inhabit, a world that is as beautiful as it is brutal, where every whispered confession is a step toward understanding the true nature of the criminal soul. As we journey together through this narrative, you will encounter the vestiges of my former life, the echoes of passion and deception that once defined my every move. You will witness the haunting beauty of decay and the resilient hope that springs forth from the ashes of regret. Through every scene, every detailed portrait of urban desolation and ephemeral connection, I hope to reveal a truth that lies beneath the veneer of criminality, that redemption is not found in the denial of one's past, but in the courageous act of facing it head-on. In the coming minutes, let your eyes wander through the vivid images that paint the backdrop of this story, a series of meticulously crafted scenes that capture the essence of a life torn between sin and salvation. The opening scenes will draw you into the pulsating heart of the city, where the interplay of light and shadow creates a visual symphony that mirrors the tumult within. You will see the solitary figure of a man who has walked the fine line between love and deceit, whose every gesture is a silent prayer for forgiveness. Allow the visual narrative to carry you through deserted alleys glistening with rain, through forgotten ruins where nature reclaims the remnants of human ambition, and through intimate spaces bathed in the soft glow of introspection. Each image is a carefully composed frame, a window into the soul of a man who has experienced both the darkest depths of despair and the fragile hope of renewal. The textures of worn brick, the glistening reflections on wet pavements, the ephemeral dance of light through broken windows all serve as metaphors for the internal landscape of a tormented heart. As the camera pans slowly over these evocative scenes, listen closely to the soft, introspective narration, a voice that carries the weight of confessions and the promise of transformation. It is a voice that dares to speak of the unspeakable, that seeks to capture the complexity of a life lived in the margins of society. In every word, every pause, there is a profound invitation to witness a journey that is as much about personal reckoning as it is about the universal search for meaning in a chaotic world. This is the essence of Inside the Criminal World, a channel that dares to explore the intricate and often paradoxical nature of human existence. Here, we peel back the layers of conventional judgment to reveal the raw, unfiltered truth of those who dwell in the shadows. It is a world where beauty and horror coexist, where every crime carries with it a trace of tragic humanity, and where the search for redemption is a quest as old as time itself. In these opening moments, I ask you to join me on this journey not as a judge, but as an empathetic observer, ready to embrace the complexities of a soul divided between light and darkness. Let your imagination be stirred by the haunting visuals, let your heart be moved by the tender confessions, and let your mind wander through the corridors of a criminal world that is as mesmerizing as it is mysterious. As we embark on this exploration, remember that every story, no matter how steeped in shadow, holds the potential for transformation. For in the midst of guilt and regret, there lies a silent promise, a promise that even the most shattered reflections can be pieced together anew. And so, with each image that unfolds before you, and with every word that is spoken in this intimate confession, I invite you to see beyond the surface of darkness into the luminous possibility of redemption. This is more than a narrative, it is a mirror held up to the hidden recesses of our own hearts, a journey into the very soul of human frailty and resilience. Welcome to Inside the Criminal World. Welcome to the story of a man who dared to confront the abyss, to unearth the buried fragments of his past, and to step into the fragile light of a new dawn. Let the journey begin. The lure of shadows. I still remember the first time I noticed the strange pull of the night. It wasn't a sudden epiphany or an overwhelming force, it was more like a whisper, a soft murmur that invited me to wander down the narrow alleys of my past. I often say that darkness has its own language, a dialect of secrets and silent promises. My story, though steeped in regret and mystery, begins with a confession. I was once a hunter, but not of beasts or demons. I was a predator, preying on the lonely and the vulnerable. I grew up in a city that never slept, where neon lights painted the night in shades of blue and red, and where every corner held a memory or a story waiting to be unraveled. Even as a young man, I was drawn to the unsaid, the unspoken, and the hidden desires that lurk beneath the surface of everyday life. There was an art in knowing just what to say and how to say it, a subtle melody that could charm even the most reticent hearts. I had learned early that words, when whispered in just the right tone, could be as potent as any weapon. My modus operandi was as simple as it was insidious. I would present myself as a misunderstood soul, a man scarred by life's betrayals, and offer solace to those who felt abandoned by fate. I sought out women who were isolated by circumstance, widows, divorcees, or simply those who had lost their way in the vast emptiness of the modern world. They were drawn to my melancholic smile and the quiet assurance in my voice. It wasn't long before I had them wrapped around my finger, believing in the false promise of companionship and redemption. One rainy evening, as I walked along a deserted boulevard, I found myself pausing before a rundown building whose dim windows flickered like the heartbeat of a dying city. I had often passed by this place, noticing the subtle hints of life amid decay, a discarded shoe here, a fluttering piece of paper there. On that night, the drizzle turned into a steady downpour, blurring the edges of reality. I felt an inexplicable thrill, as though the rain was cleansing the sins of my past, washing away the doubts that clung to my mind. I took refuge in a small cafe tucked away on a side street. The air was thick with the aroma of strong coffee and damp wood, and the low hum of hushed conversations created a cocoon of anonymity. It was here, in this unremarkable sanctuary, that I met her, an elegant woman with eyes that spoke of sorrow and secrets. She sat alone at a corner table, her delicate fingers absently tracing the rim of a chipped porcelain cup. I approached her with the practiced ease of someone who has long mastered the art of reading silent signals. "Mind if I join you?" I asked softly, already aware of the answer that would come from the spark of curiosity in her eyes. She nodded, and from that moment, I felt the familiar thrill of the chase. I listened intently as she recounted fragments of her life, a series of lonely chapters filled with missed connections and faded hopes. I offered gentle reassurances, careful not to overstep the fragile boundaries of her trust. In that intimate exchange, a subtle contract was formed. She would confide, and I would absorb her sorrows, all the while nurturing a dangerous desire that had long been buried within me. Even now, I recall that night with a mixture of nostalgia and dread. The lines between sympathy and seduction had blurred, leaving me to wonder whether I was truly offering comfort or simply weaving another web of deceit. The truth is, I was both. My life had become a labyrinth of half-truths and unfulfilled promises, a maze in which the only exit was the relentless pull of my own dark urges. Over the following months, I became a ghost in her life, a constant presence that lingered at the periphery of her happiness. We met in secret, in places where the ordinary world ceased to exist, and time itself seemed to pause. I took great care to create an atmosphere of enigma, often choosing locations that mirrored the contradictions of my soul. In abandoned warehouses, on quiet bridges over murky rivers, or in forgotten gardens where wildflowers bloomed amidst concrete ruins, our encounters became rituals of a shared loneliness. Each location was carefully chosen, every detail mattered: the distant hum of a car engine, the rustle of wind through broken windows, even the faint scent of damp earth. I wanted her to feel that our moments together were suspended in a reality that was as fleeting as it was precious. As I reflect on those times, I find myself questioning the nature of connection. Was I truly in love with her, or was it the thrill of the pursuit that ignited a spark within me? My own reflections were a constant companion, a reminder that even the most calculated schemes could not erase the chaos of the human heart. The irony was bitter. In my attempt to fill a void inside me, I was only deepening the abyss that lay beneath. Every whispered word, every shared secret, brought with it the weight of my own sins. I remember one particularly cold night, when the chill in the air seemed to seep into my bones, and the city looked like a vast expanse of frozen memories. I met her on a narrow street lined with old brick buildings, their facades marked by time and neglect. The street lights flickered, casting long shadows that danced like phantoms along the pavement. We walked side by side, our footsteps echoing in the silence, until we reached a small park that had seen better days. It was there, under the pale glow of a solitary lamp, that she hesitated, as if sensing the inevitable shift in our encounter. "I'm afraid," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the rustling leaves. There was an honesty in that simple admission that struck me with unexpected force. I stopped and turned to face her, my own heart pounding in the silence of the night. For a brief moment, I saw not the potential victim of my carefully constructed game, but a soul laid bare by the weight of her own fears. "I know," I replied, not with comfort, but with a shared acknowledgement of the darkness that surrounded us. "We're both lost in shadows, aren't we?" My words, meant to soothe, carried an undercurrent of resignation. I knew that in that moment, we were bound together not by love, but by the undeniable reality of our mutual despair. That night marked a turning point, a collision of expectations and harsh truths. The delicate balance of our relationship began to shift, and I found myself caught in a web of introspection. Was I merely a specter of her loneliness, or had I become ensnared by my own relentless need for control? The question haunted me in the silent hours before dawn, when the world was still and my thoughts roamed free. I started keeping a journal, a chronicle of my encounters and the dark fantasies that had always driven me. In those pages, I recorded every nuance, every fleeting emotion, hoping that one day the truth would emerge from the tangled threads of my confession. Writing became both a release and a burden. Each entry was a testament to the life I had chosen, a life of calculated seduction, tempered by moments of genuine sorrow. I described the faces of the women I encountered, the subtle cues in their expressions, and the myriad ways in which loneliness manifested itself. I noted the tired eyes of a widow who once believed in fairy tales, the resigned smile of a divorcee who had given up on dreams, and the quiet desperation of those who wandered the city in search of meaning. In my diary, I tried to capture not only their pain but also my own, a reflection of the duality that defined my existence. My journey was not without its dangers. There were nights when the thrill of the hunt gave way to a creeping sense of dread, when the line between predator and prey blurred into an indistinguishable smear of regret. I had learned to mask my emotions with a facade of indifference, but beneath the surface, I wrestled with demons that refused to be silenced. I began to question the morality of my actions, the endless cycle of seduction and abandonment that left a trail of broken hearts in its wake. Each stolen moment, each whispered promise, was a drop of poison slowly seeping into the fabric of my soul. In retrospect, I can see how my life was shaped by a series of choices, each one a step further down a path that led to inevitable ruin. I had convinced myself that I was simply a mirror reflecting society's neglect of the lonely, that my actions were a necessary evil in a world that prized superficial connections over genuine human warmth. But as the nights grew longer and the memories more vivid, I began to wonder if I was not the victim of my own making. The very skills I had honed to seduce and manipulate were now the instruments of my undoing. There were moments when I longed to break free from the cycle, to find redemption in a world that seemed forever tainted by the residue of my past. Yet, every time I attempted to extricate myself from the labyrinth of deceit, I found that the shadows clung too tightly, whispering secrets that I could never unhear. The faces of those I had deceived haunted me, appearing in my dreams like specters demanding retribution. It was as if each life I had touched carried a part of me, a reminder that no matter how far I ran, I could not escape the consequences of my own actions. The city around me continued its relentless pulse, oblivious to the inner turmoil of a man who had lost himself in the pursuit of empty promises. I wandered its streets with a sense of detachment, observing the play of light and shadow, the rhythm of footsteps on rain-soaked pavement. In those solitary moments, I tried to decipher the language of the night, seeking solace in the silence that enveloped me. It was during these quiet walks that I began to realize the true nature of the darkness. It was not an external force, but a reflection of the human heart, with all its contradictions and hidden scars. As dawn approached, I would return to the solitude of my modest apartment, a place that felt more like a temporary refuge than a home. There, surrounded by the muted hues of early morning, I would reread the lines of my journal, each sentence a stark reminder of the life I had led. I knew that the road ahead was fraught with uncertainty and regret, yet I couldn't help but be drawn to the mysterious allure of the unknown. The nights were filled with possibilities, a canvas on which I could paint the contours of my own redemption or, perhaps, my ultimate downfall. Looking back, I often wonder if there was a moment, a single heartbeat, when I could have chosen differently. But the past is a tapestry woven with threads of both beauty and sorrow, and no matter how hard I try, I cannot untangle the intricate knots that bind me to my destiny. I have come to accept that my story is not one of heroism or even clear-cut villainy. It is a tale of human frailty, of a man caught between the desire to love and the compulsion to destroy. Tonight, as I sit by the window watching the city awaken beneath a gentle drizzle, I feel that familiar stirring of memories long buried. The cool mist on my face reminds me that every moment is transient, that the beauty of life lies in its impermanence. I ask myself, in a quiet, almost inaudible murmur, can there ever be forgiveness for the sins we commit in the name of longing? The question lingers in the stillness, unanswered and elusive, much like the echoes of the night that have followed me all these years. In these reflections, I find a strange comfort. It is as if the darkness, with all its uncertainties, has become a part of me, a constant companion that shares in the silent confessions of a life lived on the edge. My diary, my sole confidant, holds the fragments of my soul, each page a testament to the complexities of desire and regret. I know that the journey is far from over, that there are still chapters left to be written in the story of my existence. And so, I continue to wander, both in the physical streets of the city and in the labyrinth of my own memories. With each step, I strive to reconcile the duality within me, the tenderness that longs for genuine connection, and the cold ambition that revels in the art of seduction. The line between these two forces is fragile, and I am perpetually at its mercy. I leave you with this thought: sometimes, the most profound truths are found not in the light of day, but in the quiet, shadowed corners where the heart dares to confront its deepest fears. As I write these words, I feel the weight of the night and the promise of a new dawn mingling in the cool air. Perhaps, in the endless cycle of darkness and light, there is a chance for transformation, a possibility that even a soul as tarnished as mine might one day be reborn. This is where my confession pauses, at the cusp of another night, another encounter, another secret waiting to be revealed. The pages of my diary remain open, inviting the ink of future stories that I have yet to live. I wonder, with a mix of trepidation and hope, what new truths tomorrow might bring, and whether I will have the strength to face them, as I continue to walk the fine line between salvation and damnation. The weight of remorse. Days blurred into nights as I wandered a city that pulsed with both vibrancy and sorrow. The autumn air had grown sharp and cool, draping the streets in a hazy blend of amber light and creeping shadows. Every step I took felt like a journey deeper into a maze of my own making, a labyrinth where each corner held memories of lost dreams and lingering regrets. I remember one evening when the rain fell steadily, as if nature itself mourned the past. I found refuge beneath the flickering neon sign of a modest cafe on a quiet side street. Inside, the warm, amber glow and the soft murmur of hushed conversations created a sanctuary from the relentless drizzle. It was here that I first saw her, Elise. She sat alone at a small table by the window, her eyes reflecting both the melancholy of the night and an unspoken promise of something different. Her delicate hands, resting on a worn notebook, betrayed a life filled with secrets and silent hopes. I approached her slowly, as if every movement were weighed by the gravity of my own troubled past. "May I join you?" I asked quietly, my voice a tentative bridge between our solitary worlds. Her nod was slight yet inviting, and in that moment, I sensed a kinship, two souls adrift amid a sea of uncertainty. As the rain drummed softly against the windows, we began to share fragments of our lives. Elise spoke in gentle tones about dreams deferred and the bitter tang of loneliness. Her words were clear, painting pictures of sunlit memories that now seemed almost out of reach. I listened, both comforted and haunted by the familiarity of her sorrow. It was as if every sentence she uttered echoed the silent confessions buried deep within me, a reminder of the mistakes I'd made and the hearts I had once shattered. After that long, reflective evening, we slipped out into the night together. The city, drenched in rain and softened by mist, transformed into a living canvas of light and shadow. We strolled along deserted lanes where puddles shimmered like broken mirrors and the glow of street lamps stretched our shadows into long, uncertain forms. The wet pavement reflected our tentative steps as we spoke little, allowing the quiet of the night to speak volumes instead. In those moments, every detail became a vivid tapestry of contrasts. The gentle rustle of leaves in the wind, the faint aroma of damp earth mingled with distant exhaust fumes, and the soft hum of nightlife all conspired to awaken something in me, a deep longing for redemption and a fear of the past's relentless grip. Elisa's presence was like a soft light cutting through the darkness, yet I could not escape the weight of my own remorse. Each whispered secret, every shared glance, reminded me of the ghosts I had long tried to forget. I recalled the faces of those I had once deceived, the silent accusations in their eyes, the unspoken farewells that marked the end of their fragile hopes. The duality of my existence, the constant pull between the desire to love and the compulsion to destroy, became more palpable with each step we took. In the midst of the night's quiet intimacy, I felt a stirring of possibility, a fleeting thought that perhaps, with Elise, I might find a way to mend the broken pieces of my soul. Yet, as our conversation faded into reflective silence, the city around us seemed to murmur its own stories of regret and longing. The echo of footsteps on wet cobblestones, the distant chime of a clock tower, and the soft sigh of the wind created a symphony of memories too potent to ignore. I realized then that the path to redemption was not a straight road but a series of twists and turns, where every step forward was shadowed by the memories of what once was. That night, as I returned to my small apartment, I sat by a window watching the rain weave intricate patterns against the glass. I pulled out my journal, a trusted companion that had borne witness to my darkest thoughts, and began to write. Each word was a desperate attempt to capture the contradictions within me, the yearning for genuine connection clashing with the bitter residue of my past. The ink flowed like a confession, a promise to seek light even when the darkness seemed all-encompassing. In that quiet solitude, with only the soft scratching of my pen for company, I made a silent vow. I would no longer let the weight of regret dictate my every step. Instead, I resolved to face the ghosts of my past head-on, to embrace the vulnerability of a life lived in truth, and to trust that even the most tarnished soul could find its way toward healing. The journey was uncertain, and the road ahead promised no easy answers, but as I wrote, I dared to believe that perhaps tomorrow would offer a chance to start anew, a chance to rewrite the ending of a story long marred by shadows. I awoke before dawn, the fragile line between sleep and waking blurred by a heavy, lingering melancholy. The storm had left the city glistening with remnants of rain, each droplet reflecting the uncertain promise of a new day. As I sat by my window, the soft gray light of early morning illuminated the scars of a life that had long been haunted by regret. I could still hear the echoes of last night's confessions, the weight of every whispered secret mingling with the damp chill of the air. That morning, as the city slowly stirred to life, I felt an irresistible pull toward the forgotten corners of my past, a compulsion to revisit the shadows where my transgressions and desires had once intertwined. With a sense of determination that defied the weariness of my soul, I set out on foot, following the narrow streets that wound through neighborhoods heavy with memories. I recalled the places where the lines between truth and illusion had always been blurred, places where every flicker of light or rustle of leaves spoke of both decay and possibility. My path led me to an old district, where the architecture was a tapestry of faded elegance and crumbling facades. Here, nature had begun to reclaim what time had eroded, ivy clung to worn stone, and wildflowers erupted through cracks in the pavement as if determined to defy the decay. I paused at a derelict building that, despite its battered appearance, held a quiet dignity. Its weathered walls were etched with the silent testimony of countless untold stories. In that moment, I sensed that this place, much like myself, was a repository of broken dreams yearning for renewal. I stepped inside, the threshold marking the boundary between the familiar present and a past filled with both beauty and sorrow. Dust motes danced in the slivers of light that pierced the darkness, and every step on the creaking floorboards resounded with echoes of lives once lived. I moved slowly through long abandoned corridors, where faded wallpaper and the faint smell of mildew painted a portrait of decay. It was in one of these silent halls that I discovered a narrow staircase leading to a small, forgotten study, a room that seemed suspended in time. Inside the study, amidst scattered remnants of a bygone era, I found a collection of old photographs and letters, their edges curled and discolored by time. I carefully picked one up. It was a portrait of a young woman, her eyes full of hope and quiet strength, a stark contrast to the desolation of the room. For a moment, I wondered if she, too, had once walked these corridors with a heart full of dreams. The image stirred something deep within me, a longing not just for redemption, but for connection with lives lost to the relentless passage of time. I spent the next few hours poring over the letters, each line a fragile thread linking past and present. Their contents spoke of love and loss, of secret rendezvous in candlelit rooms, and promises made under starlit skies. The delicate script, now faded, told stories that resonated with my own inner battles, stories of hearts left aching and dreams left unfulfilled. I felt as if these words were not merely relics of another life, but echoes of my own missteps and hidden desires. In those silent pages, I discovered a kind of kinship, a shared sorrow that transcended time and circumstance. As the day advanced, I emerged from that study with a newfound sense of purpose. It was as though the weight of my past had been momentarily lifted, replaced by an urge to reconcile the fragments of my identity. I recalled Elisa's gentle reassurances from our recent meetings, and the thought of her smile softened the bitterness that had long defined my existence. Determined to seek not just the specters of former transgressions but the possibility of transformation, I resolved to confront the lingering shadows that had held me captive for so long. My journey took me to a quiet park at the edge of the district, a modest haven of greenery amid urban sprawl. The park was bathed in the tender light of mid-morning, its pathways bordered by meticulously trimmed hedges and vibrant blooms that defied the inevitability of decay. I found a secluded bench beneath an ancient oak tree, its gnarled branches offering both shelter and a silent invitation to reflect. Here, I allowed my thoughts to wander freely. Every whisper of the wind, every rustle of leaves, became a verse in the ongoing poem of my life, a poem written in the language of regret and tentative hope. Sitting there, I contemplated the dual nature of my existence. I recalled the faces of those I had once deceived, their silent accusations etched into my memory. Yet I also remembered the fleeting moments of genuine connection, the spark in Elisa's eyes, the quiet intimacy shared over whispered confidences in dimly lit cafes, the subtle promise of change that even the darkest nights could offer. It struck me that perhaps my journey was not solely defined by the sins of my past, but also by the potential for redemption that lay in every honest reflection and every courageous step forward. The day passed slowly, each hour a gentle reminder of the delicate balance between darkness and light. I wandered the park's winding paths, occasionally pausing to observe the small miracles that often went unnoticed, a bird building its nest in the crook of a branch, the soft interplay of sunlight and shadow on a weathered stone, the transient bloom of a wildflower pushing through the pavement. These moments, though seemingly insignificant, stirred a quiet optimism within me, a belief that even in the midst of desolation, beauty could be found. As twilight began to descend once more, painting the sky in hues of violet and gold, I returned to my modest apartment. The familiar solitude welcomed me, yet now it felt less like confinement and more like a space for honest introspection. I sat at my desk and opened my journal, the pages inviting me to pour out the day's revelations. My pen moved steadily, capturing the interplay of memory and aspiration, the raw emotion of a heart that had learned to hope despite its burdens. That night, under the soft glow of a solitary lamp, I wrote of the day's discoveries, the echoes of the forgotten study, the silent poetry of the park, and the steady beat of a heart determined to find solace amid the ruins of its own making. I mused on the possibility that the past, with all its wounds and regrets, might one day serve as the foundation for a future reimagined, a future where the dark corridors of memory gave way to bright avenues of reconciliation and renewal. I ended the entry with a quiet promise to myself that I would continue to seek out the hidden truths in the faded pages of life, that I would confront the shadows of yesterday in the hope of embracing a more luminous tomorrow. The night deepened, and with it came a serene acceptance, a moment of clarity amid the endless interplay of light and darkness. In that stillness, I could almost believe that every step forward, however tentative, was a step toward reclaiming the parts of me that had long been lost. As I closed my journal and prepared for sleep, I felt an unfamiliar lightness of fragile hope that, despite the relentless echoes of past transgressions, the journey toward redemption was not yet forsaken. The city outside whispered its nocturnal lullaby, and in that gentle murmur, I heard the promise of tomorrow, a promise that even shattered reflections could one day be pieced together to form a mosaic of renewal and grace. I never imagined that the hardest battles would be fought within the confines of one's own soul. Yet here I was standing at the precipice of my memories, about to confront the most desolate recesses of my past. The morning that had begun with the promise of quiet renewal was now giving way to an ominous tension that pulsed through every street, every whisper of wind. I could feel it in my bones, an invisible force urging me to unearth the secrets I had long buried. The day began with an uncharacteristic restlessness. As I sat in the dim light of early morning, the familiar pages of my journal beckoned me to recall the moments of vulnerability and regret that had defined my recent journey. But today, the words on those pages felt insufficient, mere echoes of what had been, rather than a roadmap to what could be. I knew that to truly break free from the cycle of self-destruction, I had to revisit the places where my sins had taken root. Determined, I stepped out into a city that still bore the scars of the night before. The air was heavy with anticipation, as if the very streets were holding their breath in expectation of what I might uncover. My feet carried me along winding alleys and down forgotten lanes, each step leading me further away from the safety of introspection and closer to the raw, unfiltered reality of my past. I found myself drawn once more to the dilapidated mansion, the place where the diary had first whispered its secrets to me. Now, the mansion loomed in the early light like a haunted sentinel, its broken windows and crumbling facade a stark reminder of both decay and the relentless passage of time. As I approached the grand, arched doorway, the sound of my footsteps on the cracked pavement seemed to echo with voices long silenced. I paused at the threshold, hesitating for a moment as a mixture of dread and resolve swirled within me. Inside, the mansion was shrouded in a twilight gloom, even though the sun had risen beyond the horizon. Dust danced in the weak beams of light that struggled through stained glass, casting distorted patterns on walls that had witnessed countless secrets. I moved cautiously through the deserted halls, my eyes darting to every detail: an old chair left askew, a faded tapestry hanging limply, the remnants of laughter and sorrow etched into every surface. The air was thick with memories, and each inhalation felt like drawing in fragments of a long-forgotten life. I made my way to the study room where I had once discovered the diary. The room lay in quiet disarray, as if time had halted within its confines. My hand trembled slightly as I reached for a pile of scattered papers, each one a relic of someone's anguish and hope. Among them, a yellowed envelope caught my attention. There was no name on it, only a hastily scrawled note: "To know the truth, look within." The words sent a shiver down my spine. Could it be that the mansion itself was urging me to face my innermost demons? Driven by a force I scarcely understood, I settled in the study, spreading the papers before me like a mosaic of fragmented stories. The letters and photographs told tales of passion, betrayal, and the unyielding cruelty of fate. As I read them, I felt as if I were peering into a mirror that reflected not just the lives of those long gone, but also the hidden depths of my own soul. Each word, each delicate stroke of ink, resonated with the cadence of my own misgivings. It was as though the mansion had become a confessional, inviting me to confess the sins that had weighed so heavily on my heart. Hours slipped by in a haze of introspection. I became absorbed in the delicate interplay of love and loss documented in the faded letters, and with each new revelation, a part of me stirred a longing for absolution mingled with the cold sting of remorse. I recalled the faces of those I had deceived, the silent agony in their eyes, and the irrevocable damage my presence had wrought upon their lives. In that silent study, every artifact seemed to testify against me, every photograph a testament to lives cut short by my calculated seduction. The burden of my actions pressed down upon me, as tangible as the dust settling on ancient tomes. Yet, even amid the overwhelming tide of guilt, a spark of defiant hope ignited within me. I realized that in confronting these remnants of my past, I might finally understand the full measure of my own complexity. My soul was not merely a repository of regrets, it was also a canvas painted with the colors of love, longing, and the yearning for redemption. And so, I resolved to face the abyss, not to drown in it, but to let its dark waters wash away the stains of a life lived in deceit. I left the mansion with a heavy heart and a mind teeming with conflicted emotions. Outside, the city was transforming. What had once appeared as a silent, indifferent expanse now seemed to pulsate with life. The early morning bustle was giving way to the full vibrancy of day. Street vendors were setting up their stalls, the aroma of freshly baked bread mingling with the sharp tang of morning dew. Even the buildings, scarred by time and neglect, seemed to breathe with a quiet resilience. In this chaotic tapestry of urban life, I felt both insignificant and strangely invigorated, a solitary man poised at the crossroads of his destiny. My thoughts turned to Elise, whose gentle spirit had offered me a glimpse of a future that might yet hold the promise of redemption. I recalled her empathetic gaze, the way her eyes lit up when she spoke of finding beauty in imperfection, and the unspoken understanding that had passed between us in moments of vulnerability. With a deep breath, I decided to seek her out. Perhaps, together, we could forge a path through the darkness, a path toward healing, no matter how fraught with peril it might be. The journey to find Elise was one of both physical and emotional navigation. I traversed the city's labyrinthine streets, each corner a blend of modern hustle and the lingering shadows of history. The urban landscape was a study in contrasts. Gleaming new storefronts stood side by side with crumbling facades, and the relentless pace of progress seemed at odds with the enduring whispers of the past. In one quiet neighborhood, I found myself pausing before a modest church, its stained glass windows reflecting a kaleidoscope of colors onto the cobblestone path. The scene evoked a profound sense of spirituality, a reminder that even in the bleakest moments, there existed a potential for grace. As I wandered, memories of my previous encounters with Elise swirled in my mind, each one a poignant reminder of the fragile beauty that had begun to infiltrate my desolation. I recalled the gentle cadence of her laughter, the sincere warmth of her touch, and the way her presence seemed to illuminate the darkest corners of my heart. Yet, I also sensed a growing urgency, a need to share with her the burdens I had unearthed in that long-abandoned mansion, and to ask for her guidance in reconciling with the ghosts of my past. The city's pulse led me to a small, secluded park, a verdant oasis amid the urban sprawl. It was here that I often found solace, watching as nature reclaimed its territory with quiet determination. The park was a living tableau of contrasts. Vibrant blossoms fought against the encroaching shadows of towering trees, and gentle streams wove their way through meticulously maintained gardens. I sat on a weathered bench beneath a canopy of ancient oaks, allowing the symphony of rustling leaves and distant bird calls to steady my racing thoughts. I opened my phone and sent a message to Elise, a brief, tentative invitation to meet at our favorite quiet corner of the park. Moments later, her reply arrived, imbued with the warmth and understanding that had come to define her presence in my life. We agreed to meet by a small fountain at the center of the park, a place where the water danced over smooth stones, its gentle murmur echoing like a soothing lullaby. When Elise arrived, the world seemed to slow. She was bathed in the soft light of the afternoon, her eyes reflecting a mixture of concern and quiet determination. Without a word, she reached out and took my hand, her touch grounding me in a moment of shared vulnerability. We strolled along the winding path that skirted the fountain, the ambient sound of water and rustling leaves creating an almost hypnotic rhythm. "I sensed something was weighing on you," Elise said softly, her voice carrying both compassion and a hint of apprehension. "You seem troubled, as if the past is catching up with you." Her words struck a chord deep within me. I hesitated, the memories of the mansion and the weight of my sins clamoring for recognition. With a deep, steadying breath, I began to recount the fragments of my journey, my return to that haunted place, the discovery of forgotten letters, the revelations that had stirred a tempest within my soul. I spoke of the faces I had deceived, the silent accusations that had haunted my every step, and the desperate yearning to find a way out of the labyrinth of my own guilt. As I spoke, Elise listened intently, her eyes never leaving mine. In her gaze, I found a quiet strength that bolstered my faltering resolve. When I finished, the silence between us was heavy with unspoken understanding, a tacit acknowledgement that my path was one of both sorrow and possibility. "It sounds as though you've been carrying an unbearable burden for far too long," she murmured. "But perhaps it is only by facing these demons head-on that you can begin to heal." Her hand squeezed mine gently, conveying a promise that I was not alone in this journey. Encouraged by her words, I resolved then to undertake a personal pilgrimage, a quest not only for redemption but for a deeper understanding of the man I had become. Together, Elise and I planned a series of visits to the very places that had once been the stage for my darkest deeds. We would travel to the old neighborhoods, the abandoned buildings, the quiet corners where I had once sought to escape the consequences of my actions. With each step, I hoped to unearth not just the relics of my past but also the scattered fragments of a future that might yet hold light. Over the following weeks, our shared journey took on a life of its own. We revisited the derelict mansion, now seen through the lens of our mutual determination to reconcile with history. In its silent corridors, I dared to confront the images of my former self, the predator, the charmer, the man who had woven webs of deceit with every calculated word. With Elise by my side, I began to see that the mansion was not merely a repository of guilt but a testament to the possibility of transformation. Every cracked wall, every layer of peeling paint, bore witness to a life that had been lived in extremes, and now, it served as a reminder that even the most broken edifices could be mended. Our explorations led us to forgotten cemeteries where the names of those I had wronged were etched into weathered stone. I paused before each gravestone, whispering apologies to the silent faces that stared back at me. In those solemn moments, the past and present converged in a bittersweet dance of regret and hope. The act of speaking into the void, of acknowledging the lives that had been shattered by my actions, was both an act of penance and a step toward liberation. Elise's presence lent me the strength to confront these painful truths, and slowly, I began to feel the relentless grip of guilt loosen its hold. Yet the journey was far from easy. There were nights when the ghosts of my past came unbidden into my dreams, their silent accusations mingling with the persistent hum of remorse. I awoke drenched in sweat, my heart pounding as I struggled to shake the images of those I had deceived. In these moments, Elise's gentle reassurance was my anchor, a reminder that the road to redemption was long and fraught with setbacks, but not without the possibility of renewal. One particularly harrowing night, as a torrential rain lashed at the windows of my modest apartment, I found myself unable to sleep. The darkness outside seemed to echo the tumult within, and the relentless patter of rain became a metronome for my inner despair. Unable to remain confined by the oppressive silence, I reached for my journal once more. With each line I wrote, I poured out the torment that had long festered beneath the surface, a torrent of raw emotion and unsaid apologies. In that solitary moment, I resolved that I would no longer allow the past to dictate my future. Every tear, every anguished word, was a step toward absolution, a declaration that I was ready to embrace the possibility of change, however painful it might be. As dawn broke the following day, I emerged with a renewed sense of purpose. The sun's rays, tentative yet insistent, seemed to promise that even the darkest night would yield to the light of a new beginning. Together, Elise and I revisited our favorite park, where the interplay of sunlight and shadow on the winding paths now took on a symbolic significance, a visual metaphor for the balance between regret and hope. We sat for hours beneath the ancient oak tree, speaking in hushed tones about our dreams for the future and the steps we would take to heal the scars of the past. In the gentle warmth of that morning, I began to perceive a subtle shift within me. The heavy burden of guilt was still there, a reminder of the consequences of my actions, but it was tempered now by the promise of atonement. With each shared confession and every tender gesture from Elise, I felt the possibility of a future where redemption was not an impossible dream, but a tangible goal, one that could be reached, however slowly, by confronting the darkness with unwavering honesty. That day marked the beginning of what I would come to call my pilgrimage, a journey through the shadowed corridors of memory, a quest to piece together the fragments of a life marred by misdeeds. I learned that facing the abyss was not an act of self-destruction, but a necessary confrontation with the self, a reckoning that, in its raw truth, could lead to genuine transformation. As I pen these words now, in the quiet solitude of another evening, I am both exhausted and strangely hopeful. The journey ahead remains uncertain, paved with the remnants of past regrets and the flickering light of newfound determination. I know that the road to redemption is not marked by grand gestures or sweeping declarations, but by the small, everyday acts of courage, the decision to face one's demons, to seek forgiveness where it is due, and to embrace the possibility of change even when the odds seem insurmountable. In this moment, I realize that the abyss I once feared may, in truth, be the very passage through which I must pass to reclaim my humanity. It is a dark, winding tunnel, fraught with echoes of sorrow and shadows of regret, but at its end lies the promise of a new dawn, a chance to rebuild what was broken and to forge a future defined not solely by the sins of yesterday, but by the hope of tomorrow. And so, with trembling hands and a heart both burdened and buoyed by the possibility of redemption, I continue my pilgrimage, a solitary journey through a city of contrasts, a voyage that winds its way through the shattered remnants of the past toward the uncertain promise of healing. In every step, in every whispered confession to the silent night, I dare to believe that even a soul as scarred as mine can one day find solace in the light, and that the darkness I have long known might eventually give way to a horizon bathed in hope. As the first blush of dawn crept over the horizon, I found myself standing on the edge of a new beginning, a fragile moment where the darkness of yesterday yielded to the gentle promise of light. The city, once shrouded in perpetual twilight, now shimmered with an almost surreal vibrancy. Each building, each street, seemed reborn in hues of gold and rose, as if the very air had been dusted with the light of 1,000 suns. I wandered into a small square where dew clung to cobblestones like shimmering jewels, and the fragrance of freshly bloomed jasmine mingled with the crisp morning breeze. It was here, in this unexpected oasis of color and life, that I felt the weight of my past begin to lift. The symphony of chirping birds and the rustle of leaves formed a gentle chorus, a reminder that even the most battered soul might find solace in nature's tender embrace. Every step I took was a vivid dance of sensation, the cool mist kissing my skin, the soft murmur of distant conversations, the delicate interplay of shadow and light across the ancient facades. I could almost see the ghosts of my former self dissolving into the morning haze, their remnants carried away by the gentle current of time. In that luminous moment, the city transformed into a living canvas, a masterpiece painted in the bold, unyielding strokes of hope and renewal. I soon encountered Elise at a bustling corner where street vendors unfurled vibrant fabrics and the aroma of freshly baked bread wove through the air like an inviting melody. Her eyes sparkled with the clarity of a well-lit morning, and in that instant, I realized that her gentle presence was the beacon that had guided me through countless nights of remorse. Her smile was soft yet radiant, a promise of forgiveness etched in every curve. As we embraced, it felt as though our shared burdens were momentarily forgotten, replaced by the warm glow of possibility. Together, we strolled along avenues lined with ancient trees whose branches reached skyward, as if in silent supplication to the heavens. The gentle crunch of fallen leaves underfoot echoed like the heartbeat of the earth, steady and resolute. Every breath I drew seemed infused with new life, every heartbeat resonating with the possibility of redemption. I spoke softly of my journey, a journey through decay and darkness, through halls of forgotten sorrow, and she listened as if each word were a sacred incantation that could mend shattered dreams. In that timeless exchange, the world around us burst forth in a cascade of vivid details, the translucent droplets of rain still clinging to the edges of petals, the shimmering reflections of sunlight dancing on rippling puddles, and the ethereal mist that hung over the river like a gossamer veil. It was as if the universe itself had conspired to reveal the beauty hidden within the scars of my past. Every sensory detail, the crisp scent of morning air, the warm caress of the sun, the subtle murmur of a distant melody, served as a reminder that even amidst regret, life's artistry was boundless. As the day advanced, I found myself sketching the outlines of a future in my mind, a future where the fragments of my broken past could be woven together into a tapestry of resilience and grace. I envisioned moments of genuine laughter, of heartfelt conversations under starlit skies, and of quiet afternoons spent in the serene embrace of nature. The vivid images of that day remained with me like a cherished dream, each detail etched into my memory with crystal clarity. Standing at the crossroads of yesterday and tomorrow, I realized that redemption was not a destination but a continuous journey, a pilgrimage of the soul that required unwavering courage, tender vulnerability, and the steadfast support of those who dared to believe in light amidst darkness. In that final, breathtaking moment before the full day unfurled its promise, I made a silent vow to embrace each day as a fresh canvas, to allow the scars of the past to inform but not define my future, and to nurture the tender hope that had been rekindled within me. The city, now bathed in the radiance of a new dawn, whispered its own benediction, a soft, mellifluous lullaby of renewal and grace. And as I stepped forward, hand in hand with Elise, I carried within me the unshakable conviction that even the most shattered reflections, when illuminated by compassion and truth, can transform into a mosaic of redemption and sublime beauty. Beyond the shadows. As our journey through the underbelly of human frailty and the labyrinth of regret draws to a close, I invite you to pause with me and reflect on the intricate path that has brought us to this moment. This final chapter is not a mere conclusion but a contemplative farewell, a moment to acknowledge the darkness of our past while embracing the flickering promise of transformation and hope. I stand before you, not as a glorified hero or a condemned villain, but as a man who has traversed the depths of his own despair and dared to seek redemption. I recall the relentless echo of rain on cold, empty streets, the rhythmic tapping of droplets on cracked pavement that once mirrored the beating of my tortured heart. In those long nights, Every raindrop carried a memory of betrayal and loss, each reflection in a puddle a reminder of the faces I had wronged. The city around me, a sprawling maze of neon-lit alleys and forgotten monuments, bore silent witness to my misdeeds. It was in that urban wilderness that I first learned the true cost of deceit and the weight of remorse. Throughout this odyssey, I encountered moments of stark clarity amid the darkness. The abandoned warehouses and crumbling mansions that peppered the city were more than relics of decay, they were physical testaments to lives disrupted and dreams derailed. In one such derelict building, a mansion once steeped in grandeur, I discovered relics of a bygone era, faded photographs, brittle letters, and the tattered remnants of personal diaries. Each artifact was a silent confession, a trace of human vulnerability that resonated deeply within me. It was there that I began to understand that redemption is not the erasure of the past, but an honest reckoning with it. I spent countless hours within those haunted corridors, poring over documents that recounted stories of love lost, promises broken, and lives diminished by my actions. With every word I read, the weight of my transgressions pressed more heavily upon me. Yet, in that same sorrow, I also discovered an unexpected clarity. I saw that every act of cruelty had carved its mark into my soul, and it was only by accepting those scars that I could begin the slow process of healing. In the dim light of that forsaken study, I realized that my journey toward atonement was inseparable from the journey inward, a process of stripping away pretensions and facing the raw truth of my existence. Throughout this process, Elise remained a steadfast presence, a luminous guide amid the pervasive gloom. Her compassion was not a salve that erased the past, but rather a gentle force that encouraged me to confront my inner demons. In quiet conversations and shared silences, she reminded me that true transformation is born of vulnerability and the courage to accept one's flaws. With her, I learned that redemption is a gradual metamorphosis, a slow reassembly of a shattered self, piece by painful piece. Our shared moments were filled with small, profound acts of connection. I remember walking with her through sunlit parks where dew-adorned ancient cobblestones, where every step seemed to whisper the promise of renewal. In those tranquil spaces, the city's relentless chaos was momentarily silenced, replaced by the soft murmur of nature reclaiming its place. The vibrant interplay of sunlight on leaves, the gentle sway of branches in a tender breeze, all painted a picture of fragile rebirth that stirred something deep within me. It was in these moments of serene intimacy that I began to imagine a future not dominated by the specters of my past but illuminated by the possibility of genuine change. Yet, even as hope flickered in the light of day, the scars of old transgressions remained indelibly etched in my memory. I found myself wandering once more through the darkened lanes of the city, revisiting the very streets where I had once manipulated lonely hearts with deceitful charm. Every corner, every shadow, seemed to echo with the voices of those I had wronged, silent reminders that the path to redemption is strewn with the remnants of past mistakes. I paused before a weathered gravestone in a forgotten cemetery, its inscription barely legible under the encroaching ivy. In that quiet moment of solitude, I whispered apologies to the silence, acknowledging that while I could not reclaim what was lost, I could strive to honor it by dedicating myself to a life of honest contrition. The journey from darkness to light is neither swift nor simple. It is a meandering road lined with obstacles and steeped in introspection. Each day I awake with the burden of my past and the determination to forge a new identity. I have come to understand that the true measure of a man is not in the absence of sin but in the relentless pursuit of betterment despite it. Every regretful memory, every moment of shame, has become a stepping stone on the path toward becoming someone who can genuinely embrace hope. In the final hours of our shared narrative on Inside the Criminal World, I stand before you as a testament to the resilience of the human spirit. I am a living contradiction, a man shaped by cruelty and yet capable of compassion, a predator whose hardened exterior has softened under the weight of his own remorse. The truth I offer is raw and unvarnished. The journey toward redemption is fraught with pain and uncertainty, but it is a journey worth undertaking. Each act of contrition, every small gesture of kindness, serves as a brick in the rebuilding of a fractured soul. As the camera pans over the awakening city, its skyline now bathed in the soft, golden light of a new dawn, imagine the delicate balance between the memories of a turbulent past and the tender promise of renewal. Picture streets where the dark vestiges of yesteryear blend seamlessly with the burgeoning vibrancy of the present. Envision a world where each sunrise heralds not just the end of another night, but the beginning of a transformative journey. This is the vision that now guides me, a vision where every sorrowful whisper is met with a hopeful response, where every fallen tear nourishes the seeds of future growth. I urge you, the viewer, to look deep within your own heart as you absorb these final reflections. Recognize that while our pasts may be marred by actions we wish we could undo, they also serve as the foundation upon which our future selves can be built. In acknowledging our own flaws, we open the door to a life that is richer and more authentic than one of mere denial or suppression. The true essence of redemption lies not in the erasure of past missteps but in the courage to learn from them and to forge a path that honors both our humanity and our capacity for change. As we close this chapter together, I extend my gratitude to each of you who have followed this narrative, a narrative that seeks to peel back the layers of societal judgment and reveal the complex, often painful truths hidden beneath. In your willingness to bear witness to these confessions, you affirm that every life, regardless of its transgressions, holds the potential for transformation. The story you have witnessed is one of raw vulnerability and hard-won lessons, a reminder that even in the depths of our darkest moments, there exists the faint but unyielding light of redemption. Let the images of rain-slicked streets, silent memorials, and intimate moments of shared humanity serve as a reminder that our pasts do not have the final say in who we are meant to become. As you step away from this exploration, carry with you the conviction that every end is but a precursor to a new beginning, a chance to rebuild, to transform, and ultimately, to rise again. For in every heart that beats with the scars of yesterday, there lies an indomitable spirit capable of igniting a future defined by forgiveness and hope. In parting, I offer these final thoughts. Life is an ever-evolving mosaic of experiences. Each fragment, no matter how broken, contributes to the greater picture of who we are. The path I have walked, marred by guilt and illuminated by fleeting moments of grace, is a testament to the transformative power of self-confrontation and honest reflection. I now step forward into the uncertain light of tomorrow with a renewed commitment to honor the lessons of the past while embracing the endless possibilities that lie ahead. Thank you for joining me on this profound journey through the depths of the criminal world, a world where the allure of darkness and the promise of redemption coexist in a delicate, unyielding balance. May the reflections shared here inspire you to confront your own inner shadows, to acknowledge the beauty hidden within your imperfections, and to nurture the spark of hope that lies within every human soul. This is not the end but a pause, a moment to gather strength before continuing onward into a life reimagined. I am grateful for your open hearts and minds as we close this exploration. Together, let us carry the belief that while our past may shape us, it does not confine us. The journey to redemption is a lifelong pursuit, a pilgrimage that demands courage, compassion, and an unwavering commitment to truth. And so, with each new day that dawns, may you find the strength to rise above the darkness, to embrace the tender light of new beginnings, and to discover within yourself the capacity to heal, transform, and ultimately, forgive. This is the final confession from inside the criminal world. May it resonate with the unspoken hopes of every soul daring to believe in a future beyond the shadows. Thank you for witnessing this story, a story that, like all of us, is forever a work in progress, a continuous quest to turn even the deepest regret into a foundation for hope. Until we meet again, remember, redemption is not a destination but the journey itself, and every step toward the light is a step toward becoming whole once more.